I'm delighted to welcome Anne Wilson and Sarah Nelson from Children Health Scotland. Today they're going to be delivering a session for KCAS, the Kinship Care Advice Service for Scotland, on calming techniques for kinship carers and the children in their care. So welcome Anne and welcome Sarah, and I'll pass over to you now.
Thanks very much, Susan, and equally, we are equally delighted to be here. And as Susan said, my name is Anne Wilson and my colleague Sarah Nelson, and between us we deliver the service for kinship carers, which includes delivering workshops on any health-related matter, health to do with their children and young people's care. And we do that face-to-face now, we're very pleased to say, but we also do it remotely, digitally, whatever works. And this session, calming techniques for carers and the children and young people, was first delivered during Kinship Care Week this year. And it was decided that we wanted to record it so that it could be put on the KCAS website, or is it kinship.scot, Susan, but we'll tell you more about how to access it and the materials. Sarah, do you want to say anything before we move into the slides?
No, I just assist Anne with the workshops, and I'm excited to deliver this webinar. Thanks.
Thanks. Can you give us the first slide?
Yeah, I'll get them up.
The slides will be posted for everybody, as I said, on the resources section of the KCAS website. So you can see here the title is Calming Techniques for Carers and their Children and Young People. And that's really what we wanted to accentuate, the fact that when we made the selection of calming activities for this webinar, we were very mindful that it should, if at all possible, they should be appropriate both for the carers and the children and young people. So throughout the session, we'll be introducing you to about 15 activities. So the next slide will tell you a little bit more about the reasons for this session. So today's session, I think everybody, whether you're a carer or not, has been confronted by a situation where your children and young people have a meltdown. That seems to be the going phrase. And I know that, you know, it's also sometimes called temper tantrums or the terrible twos. But of course, we know from kinship carers that the meltdowns can be more extreme in children who have experienced what we call childhood adversity in their early years. So whether that be through various forms of insecure attachment, neglect, abuse, trauma, this plays out later in life in perhaps more pronounced, we keep on having to use the meltdowns. The training will hopefully explain why this might be happening, and how to support the child when it does. I would have to say this session is linked to one that we delivered during last year's Kinship Care Week in 2021, which was, some of you may remember, was called Understanding Trauma and Supporting Recovery. And after that session, as part of the feedback, carers said, well, that's wonderful, now we get it, but so what are we going to do now? In fact, reminds me of the kinship guide. I'll just do a wee plug here. What now? So, you know, we've got the trauma bit, so what now? And this session really tries to address that. And the other thing I would have to say is that you will know this, that when a child is in the middle of a major meltdown, it's really difficult to reach them. They're not listening to you, they can't hear you. And actually, we have to wait till the storm passes before you can actually reconnect with them. In the words of Rutger, repair, reconnect. And I think that's a title of one of Suzanne Dyke's webinars. And one of the things that we stress is that if you've got this battery of different activities, or say menu of different activities, you can practice them in a routine way, just daily. So you might do a little bit of mindfulness daily, or a grounding, a wee bit of breathing. So you're building it into the child's life. So it's not kind of like sticking on a sticking plaster when things get rough and they cut themselves. It's more like building their resilience, making it part of their core being. So it actually supports them in the moment and makes it easier for them to regulate when they do have these meltdowns. The next slide will show you the aims of today's session. So we're thinking a little bit about why self-care is so important for carers. And this is the why. We said, you know, why does this happen? What's happening in your brain when you're very stressed out? And we all do it. We have the fear, the fight, the flight, and the freeze mode. And many of you will have heard of that and come up against it, encountered it in various forms and various trainings. And then the third bullet point there is the actual sort of nub of this session is the effective techniques and strategies to help both you and the children and young people cope with stress. And there will be some things that you will do individually and some things that you will do alongside the child. And then in addition to today's recorded webinar and the PowerPoint, there will be an accompanying document where we'll signpost you to other resources and sources of help, which are infinite. There's an infinite variety, shall we say, and it'd be a lifetime to get through them all. But it's always nice to dip in and find something new, or something with maybe a wee bit of a new slant. So the next slide does connect us back to the Kinship Care Week in 2021, and a very telling quotation which was given by one of the keynote speakers at the Kinship Care Week 1 year ago. What am I talking about? Underestimating COVID. During 2021 Kinship Care Week, there was a presentation from David Trickey, who works for Child Trauma UK, and his very famous quotation was, "I will be all right if they're all right. I'll be all right if the kids are." And of course, he was at pains to point out, actually, it's the other way around. If you as the carer are all right and regulated and practice your calming and mirror calm, even when you're not feeling it, then the children will pick up from that, and the children will feed off that, and it helps them to regulate. So, but it's a very natural to say, I just want the kids to be all right and then I'll be all right. It's very natural. I've heard so many kinship carers say that. And introducing the concept of me time is quite difficult, because carers think, oh, well, that might be selfish. But in fact not. So it's really like putting on your oxygen mask. Heaven forfend that you've ever been in a plane crash, but if you were, or some kind of emergency that required an oxygen mask, if you don't have that mask, then you will fall, maybe unconscious. You need that oxygen mask on you first to keep you okay before you can actually help other people. So think of the self-care as being a wee bit like that. And the next slide just says a little bit more about that. So what is self-care? it means, and there's a cup of tea or coffee or whatever your favorite drink is, it means that you are being mindful of your own needs. So you're better able to support the people around you, the people that you care about. Now, I can hear you saying, because, well, I've no right to say that, but I certainly do. Oh, no, but I wouldn't put my own needs first. But again, because you have to be okay. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's another famous one saying alongside the oxygen mask. Be kind to ourselves, and being kind to ourselves will mirror to the children in your care that you're worth it, in the words of the advert. Because you are worth it, you're kind to yourself. They see you as being, as thinking of yourself as being important and not putting yourself last or down or whatever. And when you take care of yourself, you will be less stressed. I don't want to say you're not stressed, but you will be less stressed and you're better able to meet the children's needs. It's this balance between self-care is selfish and it isn't selfish. And we're wired to care. You will all be wired to care, and caring for other people is in itself rewarding and gratifying. So there are lots of reasons why you would do it, but remember, it's best done from a point of view of you being regulated and you being as calm and as in control as you possibly can be to mirror that out. And I just, before I hand over to Sarah, just want to say something about the circles of support that we sometimes talk about. We are aware that lots of carers are maybe on their own, but you may have someone there with you in the house with your partner or husband, wife. But it's important to have support outside the home as well. And so the widening circles of support are the closest in to you would be maybe a close friend, someone from your Kinship Care support group, maybe someone that you know from the school gate. It could be a range of people that you can kind of bounce ideas off and is a support in addition to whoever you have at home. And then we go out another circle, a wee wider, and that could be community groups, or it could be people in the Kinship Care advisory service. It could even be people within the social work department and your supervising social worker. And then the final circle, as it ripples out, is the professional circle. So that could be the support of someone from another agency, whether that was Children First, or it might be support from CAMS. It could be any other form of professional support. So you need to, it does help to think of these, are they concentric circles? I think they are, with the child at the middle and you, the child's carer, at the middle, and the serving out, but all interlinking. So remember that second bullet point on the aims of the session. Why is, well, where does the trauma come from? So Sarah's going to just give us a wee reminder about that. Hark back to last year's understanding trauma. Is it moving on, Sarah? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you might be wondering what meerkats have to do with a slide about trauma, but I just want you to have a wee think about the qualities a meerkat has. So as we're focusing on making it appropriate for both carers and children and young people, we wanted to talk about the brain and trauma and what's going on there in a way that's sort of accessible for everyone and everyone can understand. So the next slide is going to be based on a book by Jane Evans called Little Meerkat's Big Panic, and it's been adapted by our friends at Relax Kids. So here's a picture of the brain, and it's highlighting 3 main parts that are involved in this sort of trauma responses. So here we've got the amygdala, so that's involved with our emotions, particularly fear. It's the alarm center of our brain. So that's why it's been related to this meerkat. So if you think about a meerkat up on its hind legs, always on the lookout, looking out for trouble, that's what the amygdala does. And that's the part that's responsible for our fight, flight, freeze response. And right next to it, you can see you've got the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is what's the part of the brain that stores all of our memories, and these are both conscious and unconscious. So conscious ones are like what you ate for breakfast this morning, what you did at the weekend, and our unconscious ones are things like riding a bike. You don't go out and think, oh, I've got to put this pedal in front of the other, you just do it. Because it's involved with memory, it's been compared to an elephant. As we all know, elephants never forget. The third part of the brain we're looking at is the prefrontal cortex. So it's actually a bit of a bigger area than is highlighted here in the green, but it just sort of highlights how closely tied in it is with these other 2 parts. They're all right next to each other. So this is involved, it's sort of the thinking part of the brain, the part of the brain that is involved in what we think our brain does. So things like our planning, our reasoning, our inhibition, intelligence, or all of our social skills are all controlled by this part of the brain. And that's why it's been compared to an owl here, because we all think of owls as these wise, intelligent animals. So these parts of the brain all sort of have to work together. But perhaps if you've had a lot of past experiences where you've had a lot of fear, threat, uncertainty, anxiety, you might be a bit over familiar with this, your amygdala, the meerkat part of the brain. And it means that this part is probably very overreactive. And once you're in that meerkat part of the brain, that fight flight mode, you can't reason with it. The owl and the logical part of the brain can catch up. So first things first, we need to slow the meerkat part of the brain down. If you think of meerkats, they're always very fast, very reactive. So we need to slow it down and let the elephant part and the owl part catch up. So that's today we're going to be looking at some techniques that do that. And we do really recommend the Little Meerkat's Big Panic book. It's a story about a meerkat which falls asleep when he's on the lookout. It's his responsibility to be on the lookout. He falls asleep and he wakes up and all the other meerkats have gone. So that obviously sends him into a very, very big panic. And 2 other characters in the book, which is the elephant and the monkey, help him to calm down and to find all the missing meerkats. So you've probably all heard about the fact that we need 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day to help support our physical health. And we're now going to introduce you to a new 5 ways to help support your mental health. So this slide's showing the 5 ways to well-being, which are quite fairly new recommendations from the NHS. And it's an overview of sort of all the things we need to include to keep our well-being good. So the first one is connecting with others. So this could be talking to a friend, texting, calling, just staying in touch with other people. The second one is giving to others. So that could be taking part in volunteering, giving your time, giving someone a gift or a smile, even small things like a random act of kindness or a small positive note, will all helps trigger release of good brain chemicals and helps to support your own well-being as well. The third one is being mindful or taking notice. This can be as small as if you're on a walk, just taking the time to sort of clear your head, being in the present, taking in your surroundings, not being all caught up with thoughts that are whirling around your brain. The fourth one is learning. So if you're watching this today, you've already ticked that one off. It can be things like your Wordle, your Duolingo, anything, reading a book just to keep your brain active. And the third one is being active, which we all know exercise is good for our health, but even things like going on a walk or anything like that. So the next slide we're looking at is another service in our Children's Health Scotland. The self-management service works with children and young people with long-term health conditions. So we taught them about the 5 ways of well-being, and here are some of the ideas that they came up with. I'll let you have a wee look because they're a lot more creative than ours. My favourite one is the teaching dad hula hooping to stay active. So yeah, we want you to have a think about these. What have you done recently? And maybe for your homework, try and incorporate something into your day that you've not done very recently. Yeah, and one of the other things we've heard from carers, the hardest one to get your head around is the mindfulness. It's quite a tricky concept to grasp. So the next slide, we're going to look at a grounding technique talked through by our colleague Michelle, and she's going to go through the 5 senses, and we're going to have to do a task for each to help us stay in the present and stay mindful, help us to be mindful.
This technique will use your 5 senses to remind you of the present. This is a calming technique that can help you get through tough or stressful situations or relax before starting an activity. First, take a deep belly breath to begin. 5. Look around for 5 things that you can see and say them out loud. For example, you could say, I see the computer, I see the cup, I see the picture frame. 4. Feel. Pay attention to your body and think of 4 things that you can feel and say them out loud. For example, you could say, I feel my feet warm in my socks. I feel the hair on the back of my neck. Or I feel the pillow I'm sitting on. 3. Listen. Listen for 3 sounds. It could be the sound of traffic outside, the sound of typing, or the sound of your tummy rumbling. Say the 3 things out loud. 2. Smell. Say 2 things you can smell. If you're allowed to, it's okay to move to another spot and sniff something. If you can't smell anything at the moment or you can't move, name your 2 favourite smells. 1. Taste. Say 1 thing you can taste. It may be the toothpaste from brushing your teeth or a mint from after lunch. If you can't taste anything, then say your favourite thing to taste. take another deep belly breath to end.
So we know that being a carer, you might not have a lot of time to give to things such as mindfulness for yourself, but this could even sort of be incorporated into things like whilst you're washing your hair, and build it into your weekly routine, and just going through the 5 senses. Now Anne's going to tell you a little bit more about how the importance of routine. You're on mute, Anne.
I know, I do beg your pardon. I was trying to do that to reduce interference. The washing line activity, we first became aware of this and first developed it in lockdown 1. If you can think back to these, and I don't want you to think back to that April 2020 to June 2020, but at that time we were hearing from Kinship Carers and worries about children's presentation or behavior, and we, running away, locking themselves in their rooms, refusing to eat, turning night into day, threatening violence, really extreme behaviors. And of course, part of that was that the routine, through no school and through people being ill and maybe even getting food or shopping was difficult. A lot of the things that were around, that were elements of COVID, also reminded the children of maybe very difficult early times in their birth families. And so we realized that this was resurfacing trauma. But everybody benefits. I mean, everybody benefits from routine. But I think most especially important for children who've been exposed to various forms of adversity in their early lives, because they can't always be sure that things will happen and that there will be food on the table or that there will be somebody there for them. And therefore, when under COVID, the routine all went out the window, this, of course, reminded them of previous difficult times. Everybody's got elements to their day which make up their day, which in no particular order, but might involve getting up, getting showered and dressed and breakfasted and out to school. I'm doing them in the order, but you don't need to. And they certainly weren't done in that order under COVID, because some of us were still in our PJs or our onesies at 3 in the afternoon. But the routine is important. Now, we've got 2 versions of this. We've got the slide as you see it in front of you, but Sarah's going to show you the digital version of it, which is nice because as you'll see there, they have control. The children or you have control over exactly where the elements of the day go. So we'll just give it a wee minute to load. Here it is. You can go back and revisit this at your leisure, even though it went through quite quickly. These are the elements of your day. And it's a click and drag of the item in the wash basket up onto the washing line. And of course, there's a wee bit of discussion. Oh, do you think schoolwork should come there? Oh, no, I'm going to play first. And so on and so forth. So it's, yeah, and where would you put exercise? I heard a family saying that exercise was critical first because it released the endorphins to waken them up and get them ready for all the other things. And yeah, where are we going to put chores? So, and of course, a variation on this would be that with the children, you discuss other things that they do in the day and that make up the elements of their day. But of course, you as a carer have a routine to get to, and so does the child, and you could compare where does it overlap, and of course a negotiation around the order in which it should come there. But just we'll go back to the original slide again, but just to say that routines create certainty, and with certainty can come safety, that you're going to be there for them. Can we take it back to the PowerPoint? So just that slide. So of course you can do it in the craft way, and it gives you a list on the yellow post-it of the things that you need to collect. That can be fun too, collecting them around the house, and then rigging up your washing line and negotiating where you're going to put the different activities in the course of the day. And of course, for children that maybe are either younger or don't have the same literacy skills, you don't need to write it. You can draw on the post-its that you're going to hang on your washing line. So have fun with that. And the next 3 slides all show different calming activities to help worry and stress.
So we're not going to have time to play the video in this link, but it's the story called The Huge Bag of Worries by Virginia Ironside, which is a story about a little girl whose worries are filling up this bag, and it's sort of burdening her throughout the day. And she finds out that actually by sharing the worries, she sort of realizes how silly some of them are, and how some of them are other people's worries, and some things are things she can't change. So it's a really, really good message. And from sort of based on that message, we've heard of lots of different activities you can do with children based on sharing their worries to get them out there, and so that they don't feel like such a burden anymore. So a few of them involve, most of them involve, first of all, writing down the worries, or and then posting them somewhere to take them away. So this could be into a worry bag, a worry box. We'll share a link of how you can make your own worry box, like a post box to put all your worries in. Worry monsters, we've heard of both paper versions and soft toy versions. So the idea is the monster eats the worry up, so that the children don't have to worry about them anymore. They've been taken away from them. There are also worry dolls that they can tell their worries to, or give a token that's meant to represent their worry, and then the doll will sort of hold that for them. Or for sort of older young children, encouraging them to journal and just get their thoughts and anxieties and worries down on paper themselves can be really helpful. So this is the stress bucket, and it's based on the idea that we all have stresses and worries, and often there's not a lot of there's not much we can do about the things in our life that make us feel stressed, but the one thing we can control is how we manage and cope with the stress that we're facing. So this is the stress bucket activity. I'll show you the digital version first, but like the washing line, can also be done physically, which we've had very good feedback from carers that have tried it. So it's based on the idea that we all have our own stress buckets, and everyone's is a different size. We're all individuals. We can all manage different amounts of stress. These buckets fill up with stress and worries that we face in our lives. On a good day, they're probably very empty, and we could cope with a lot. But on a bad day, for example, you haven't had a good night's sleep, you've slept in and now you're just running late throughout the day, they're probably pretty full already. So it'll just take a tiny amount of stress to just completely overflow, and that's what we're trying to stop and prevent happening. So the aim is to prevent the bucket from overflowing. So for this, we have to be very mindful of how stressed out we already are, how full our buckets are, and imagine sort of turning on a tap and letting some of the stress out. So thinking of different activities and things we can do to de-stress and let some of that stress out of our bodies and minds. And it's really important that what works for some people might not work for others. We're all very individual, so you need to be aware of what works for you. So this is some of the things suggested on the online Digital Bricks Children's Health Challenge. And I'm just going to highlight some of the ones that we're talking about today, really. So the importance of sleep, going for a walk, being active in that 5 ways of well-being, water, music, relaxation, breathing, writing down your worries, as we've just mentioned, the importance of yoga, and talking to other people, being connected, are all things that we'll be looking at. We either have looked at or will be looking at. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint, and it's important to know that you don't need the digital access. It's something we came up with over the lockdown periods. You can also do this in person. All you need is a bin or a bucket, or your stress, to represent your stress bucket, and either bean bags, balls, balloons, to be the stress that fills it up. So each time you can think of as something that stresses you out, you throw it and try and get it in the bucket, and you try and fill it up, but don't let it overflow. And then to remove some of the stresses, you need to come up with things you could do to de-stress. So I think we had there going on a walk, and then you take something out. And if you've got more than one child or young person in your care, you can turn it into a bit of a race, make it a competition, but you will probably need 2 buckets. So try and see who can fill it up the fastest, not letting it overflow, and who can empty it as quickly as possible by coming up with different ideas. So Anne's now going to give you some ideas of activities that can help prevent children and young people's stress buckets from overflowing.
I see it coming. It's just taking its time to load. So, and as Sarah said, this is called my calming poster. And of course, if you look at number 3 there, squeeze a bean bag or something soft, it's involved obviously throwing the bean bags into the stress bucket Sarah described to you. I mean, even that can be distressing, just the act of throwing something very meaningfully and strongly into a bucket. But so this is a calming poster that was to us originally by our friends at Scottish Attachment in Action. And originally we thought that a lot of the activities were concerned with, releasing that overflow of stress for younger children. But actually, when we used it with a group looking at strategies for adolescents in our Adolescence Matters workshop, a lot of the carers said, no, my young person will punch a pillow, or they'll do star jumps or trampolining, or they'll do they'll take it out on one of these boxing punch bags, or they'll go running, or what. So they're not necessarily, though they may look initially more appropriate for younger children, they aren't. And again, as I said, there's lots of the things that are mentioned here we're going to be looking at in the course of the rest of the webinar. And we would invite you, and in turn invite your children, to add to these ideas. So or ask your child to think of some ideas of their own. And I think the beauty of the calming poster, which you can download and print off, is that it's a colouring in poster, and that in itself is a lovely mindfulness activity. But if you look right at the very middle one, so it's about 5 items down the list, you will see listen to music. And the next slide is going to talk about why music is so important, and how a little bit about how it calms us. So if we think about music and the power that it has, not just over our brain, but also our body, and we remember that it's the very first thing that we might be aware of, the baby is aware of in the womb, is the beat of its mother's heart. It's its mother's heartbeat. And of course, beat is one of the essential elements of music, rhythm. Doesn't matter what the music is, if it's hip hop or it's jazz or it's grime or disco, or I'm going to run out of music suggestions, but there will be a beat and a rhythm there. And it has the power to lift people up and bring them up a bit. As in the words of Oliver Sacks, the famous man who wrote the book Awakenings, and there's a film, he says that it's a quickening art. And you think quickening, it brings people alive. Some of you may have seen the effects of music on dementia patients. And if you go on to the Playlist for Life link there, Playlist for Life was formed by the journalist and broadcaster Sally Magnuson in memory of her mum, and a little bit more on that later. But if you think back to your patients, your residents of dementia in care homes, we were at conference once and there was a presentation from Playlist for Life, and they showed a video of a man who had been deep, he was deep in the ravages of dementia, so much so that he couldn't even recognize his partner, his wife of 40 more years. But they had been great dancers together. And when whoever was assisting managed to identify the song or the dance tune that he loved and had known and danced to as a young man, they played that through headphones, and honestly, it was an awakening. It was a quickening, the quickening art. He rose up in his chair, gave a huge smile, grabbed hold of his wife and got her dancing round the room. Now, the camera does not lie. There are countless examples of that. We actually had that just before Christmas. We were on a Zoom call with Kinship Carers and doing, I think it was Loss and Change. It doesn't really matter. What matters was that showed the power of music, because we were talking about this very thing. We asked carers to mention one of their favourite tunes, and one man said, "It's a Wonderful World." And I think he also mentioned Twinkle Twinkle, but everybody started singing. But the wee children in the background, who I have to say were under 2, clocked onto this and came over, jumped into the carer's arms and started singing and signing along to the song. Such was the part, and it just made everybody's day. They were all wreathed in smiles. It was lovely. Yeah, so see if you can make a playlist with your child or young person and tell them what yours is, and just have a bit of fun with thinking about that, because we've got music all around us, but sometimes we need to listen to it mindfully in order for it to have its full impact. And I think it's interesting to think about music as the first, because you go back to that original heartbeat in the womb, and music is the last, because it is, research shows that it is the last thing to reach the brain, even when all other forms of communication channels have been closed. And I found that very moving. So, like we said, when we were looking at all the different things in the stress bucket, there were other activities that were mentioned, and Sarah's going to introduce you to a few of those just now.
Yeah, so I think this was on the stress bucket to release some of that water or stress out, yoga. So I know it's very popular for adults, but a lot of people don't really consider it for children and young people. So we just wanted to draw the attention to Cosmic Kids, and they use stories and music, like we just talked about, to make it much more interactive. And we know that yoga is good for relaxation, focusing on your breathing, mindfulness, and it just sort of has an all-rounder effect. Another all-rounder that's probably pretty overlooked is the power of pets. So if you've got a pet, you've got that friendship, you're connecting with them, relating back to the 5 ways of well-being. You've got that unconditional love. You can we've all heard often about kids telling all their worries or their life stories to pets, and they're not going to talk back or argue. They're not going to tell their secrets to anyone else. So you've got that strong bond with them. You've also got a bit of learning. If you're looking after a pet, you're taking responsibility. You're giving your time to another living creature. And it can help build a good sense of achievement, help to increase self-esteem, that they're being responsible. Another key part of pets is they can help improve your health. So if you've got a dog, you'll be taken out for lots of walks. I've even seen people take rabbits and cats out for walks as well. Horse riding is another great thing. So you've got that, you're out in nature, you're having fun, you're getting some exercise in, and it can help you meet other people if you're out like that as well. And even just actually being around pets themselves, they help to trigger the release of serotonin, which is a endorphin that helps to improve our mood. So they've really got an all-round benefits. So just as sort of pets can help to change our brain chemicals, Anne's going to tell you a little bit more about another common substance that also does the same.
It's going to move on.
Are you there?
Yeah, I am, but I've not got the slide yet. Ah, here we are. So did you know that drinking can actually reduce the negative impact of cortisol, which is the stress hormone? I knew that water was very good for the brain because I knew that children were encouraged to drink lots of water in school, and I've witnessed it with family members. It's like watering a plant. You give them a few glasses of water and all of a sudden they come back to life. But I think we need to remember that. And really, sometimes it's not easy to drink just plain old water, particularly when it's maybe not very warm. Can't say that just now. Anyway, water is extremely important. So see how it affects your energy levels and your mood. And we actually delivered this webinar as a face-to-face workshop quite recently, and two of the practitioners, the kinship care practitioners, came armed with their huge bottles of water, and they were apparently in competition that day to see which of them could get through, you know, the water. And it was all their lines, you know, the bottles that you can get in certain supermarkets, and their lines show you how far you've got to go, so on and so forth. So you can make it competitive. Just a wee word of warning to watch out for not overdoing it. Now, don't just assume that 2 litres is a blanket measure. You do have to be careful, because it does depend on your body size and your body mass and your weight and lots of other factors. So you need to be a wee bitty mindful of that. You can get apps. There's one called a Plant Nanny. And I just wanted to quickly mention, I'm a great fan of a Radio 4 podcast by Dr. Michael Mosley, and he just goes, just one thing. So his just one thing might be mindfulness, we've mentioned, taking a break, might be breathing, but he did one last autumn on water. And he actually proves scientifically why the water is so good for us, but he sends a person away for a week's experiment to try drinking so much water and come back and report. So that's the kind of format of it. But it's well worth listening to loads of different subjects. It's called Just One Thing. Now, moving on, one of the other elements in life, the key elements, we have water, we have air, and so we're going to fly a kite. And this is courtesy of Reasons for Growth, a programme for loss and bereavement, a programme for children and young people. And I first encountered it there. And just as you would, when you're flying your real kite outside to keep it straight, you often have weights on the tail. So the activity is asking the children to have 4 bows, which are weighted, 4 on the tail, to keep the flying true. Sarah, I don't know whether have we got time to play a wee blast of the song, or are we?
I can share that.
Oh, let's go fly a kite up to the highest height. Let's go fly a kite and send it soaring up through the atmosphere, up where the air is clear. Oh, let's go fly a kite.
A proper kite needs a proper tail, don't you think?
That's what I said.
Thanks. So on the proper tail, you see the 4 numbered there. You get the child to write or draw the name of a person who has been particularly supportive and helps them and on whom they depend. And so, of course, it could be a parent, a family member, or the home. And on the second bow or weight, they write a favorite place, a place where they have been happiest. And thinking about that boosts their state of mind or mood. And the third one, they write or draw a treasured object. So it could even be a memory. It could be a memory of when they went to a picnic, or they went to a football match with their dad, or anything. And then the final one is, what do they most like doing? A favorite activity. So again, it could be jumping on the trampoline, or helping make pizza for tea, or just chilling with friends. Endless activities, but whatever they really, really are passionate about doing, and think about that activity, it makes them smile. And those things add to the resilience and keeps their own kite, their lives flying straight and true. Now, we talked about air and the importance of air, and this next slide talks actually about breathing. And we've got a little activity to share with you. So I think the most important thing to say about breathing is that when you're breathing out, you cannot be tense. It's not physically possible. So when you breathe in through your nose and you blow out, you are de facto relaxed. The other great thing is that actually, if you do several rounds of breathing, not only does it help you to feel more relaxed, but it actually reduces your heart rate. One of the things you can do with children, particularly if they're a bit older and they might like to be into science of things, you can ask them to take their pulse, if they know how to do that, and measure it and work out, so how many beats in 15 seconds, and then multiply that by 4 to get the number of seconds in a minute, and then you can get your heartbeat per minute. Then do the breathing, and then take the pulse again at the end and notice the change. Now, this little girl's blowing bubbles, and we call this a joint activity. If you sat this little girl down and tried to teach her to breathe, it wouldn't necessarily be very successful and it wouldn't be very fun. But asking her to blow bubbles she's concentrating on blowing the bubbles. What she doesn't realize is that she's had to take a big belly breath and is blowing out in a very slow and controlled way in order to make as many bubbles and as big bubbles as she can. So we call this a joint activity because the breathing is almost secondary, but it isn't, because without the breathing, you can make the bubbles. But it's fun for her because she's got this beautiful result of keeping it low, breathing out low and slow, as it says there in the second paragraph. And it can help all sorts of things, not just your mood, but also your digestion and everything. So we're going to hear Amy and just have a wee practice.
Sorry, I'm just gonna have to come out as one of the windows hasn't.
Hi.
Good, sounds, I can hear her.
Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm here to share one of my favorite breathing activities with you today. Breathing deep into our bellies is really helpful when we're stressed or anxious or worried about something. It's really helpful for our mind and our body to be calm and relaxed, and we can make better decisions and better choices. Today I'm going to teach you about Take 5 or star breathing. It can be called star breathing because sometimes we use a drawing of a 5-point star, but we don't always have a drawing with us. So I like to use my hand as if it was a 5-point star. I always have my hands with me. It's really helpful to practice this before you need it. So practice every day if you can. If you have asthma or allergies, or you've had a recent cold or a stuffy nose, it's important that you don't breathe too deeply. You don't need to make yourself cough. So just breathe to where your comfort level is. Is everybody ready? We're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth using our hand. And as we trace up our fingers, we'll breathe in. As we go down the other side, we'll breathe out. So 5-point star at the ready. Stretch your fingers way out. Use the pointer finger of your other hand and start at your thumb. Here we go. Breathing in through your nose. Hold for a moment. Breathing out. Breathing in through your nose. Hold for a moment. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Well done. I hope you feel calmer. I hope you feel more peaceful. Thank you for joining me today.
And thank you to Amy very much for that. So Sarah's going to talk to you about other very important aids to relaxation. And certainly true to say that mindfulness and breathing, which we've looked at today in quite a lot of detail, is key to the health of our mind and body. But this just rounds it off, and another couple of very important ones. So I'll hand over to Sarah.
So as Anne has just said, both breathing and mindfulness and things are key ways to sort of slow down our meerkat brain and relax both our body and our mind. But we've got a link here that has lots of other fantastic resources to help children, ideas to help children and young people relax. I'll just share it quickly. So the resource looks like this, and it's just sort of a relaxation pack with different ideas, and it's really nice. There's some things that ideas for both morning and night, things that you can build into your routine. So for example, here before and after school, and before bed, because yeah, I think we all know mornings can be very stressful, not very relaxed. So it's things that you can try at different times of the day to help relax. And yeah, particularly as well before bed, is I'm sure some of your children will have difficulties with getting to sleep. So yeah, bedtimes can be difficult for all children, but particularly for care experienced children. If you try and put yourself in their shoes, they're all alone in the dark, which could be scary in and of itself. Perhaps they've had past experiences where their bedroom's not been a nice place. They've heard arguments or violence, or bad things have happened to them there, or perhaps they've had like the police crashing through. So they can start to associate sort of bedrooms with not very positive things, which can make it very difficult to relax. So we've got two links here which have tips about sleep hygiene for children and young people, which we know all of these are so much easier said than done and implemented. And we just also wanted to highlight that it is probably more difficult for teenagers. We've now got a reliance on technology, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard emits blue light, which can help disrupts our sleeping patterns, especially before bed. And also teenagers naturally have very different circadian sleep rhythms from us as adults, which can make it quite difficult for them to adapt to sort of the 9 to 5 lifestyle that we have in society. Another thing we wanted to put in here just at the bottom is gratitude journaling, or thinking of positives. It's sort of the reverse of the worry bag activity we did earlier. We don't just want to think about the negatives, and it's been shown that it can be really good for your brain to end the day thinking of happy thoughts. It can help sort of ingrain them in your memory and really help promote well-being. So yeah, we recommend trying to list off things you're grateful for or positive things that have happened to you throughout the day before going to sleep. And one thing we've heard at our workshops as well is carers will say, oh, well, nothing good ever happens to me. But we just wanted to sort of promote that it doesn't have to be big things. Listed here from a child's perspective is like, it didn't rain today, so I got to go outside. Some other ones we've heard are, I went downstairs and my dog or my cat was so happy to see me, it just put a smile on my face. Or in the summer, or times when it's light out, it was light when I got up in the morning, or it was light in the evening and I got to go out more. It can be really, however big or small you can think of. They don't need to be, you don't need to put a lot of pressure into it. Another thing that can help is stories. So we know that children, young people make sense of the world through stories and storytelling, and they're such a great idea before bed. For younger children, you can read them a story, or older kids, you can get them to perhaps read to you. And yeah, we're just going to play a little bit of our video of our ambassador Rory Crawford reading Can't You Sleep Little Bear, and that was created for Kinship Care Week last year. It's by Martin Waddell and Barbara Firth, and it's about a little bear who's frightened by the dark, and the big bear that does everything he can to make him feel safe and secure. So hopefully play this. Should I do it from a bit of the later timing?
To mute. I'm just saying, Sarah, people will be able to listen to the whole thing when they're going back through it, won't they? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have the link. It's all on our website, and with loads of other stories that they can have a look at. So we'll just play a clip of it.
Hello, it's Rory here.
We're not from the beginning.
Of the fire. Little Bear tried and tried, but couldn't go to sleep. Can't you sleep, little bear? Groaned Big Bear, putting down his bear book with just 2 pages to go, and padded over to the bed. I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm scared, said Little Bear. Why are you scared, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear. I don't like the dark, said Little Bear. What dark? Asked Big Bear. The dark all around us, said Little Bear. But I brought you the biggest lantern of them all, and there isn't any dark left, said Big Bear. Yes, there is, said Little Bear. There is, out there. And he pointed out of the bear cave at the night. The night is dark, it's true. Big Bear saw that Little Bear was right. Big Bear was very puzzled. All the lanterns in the world wouldn't light up the dark outside. Big Bear thought about it for a long time, and then he said, Come on, Little Bear. Where are we going? Asked Little Bear. Out, said the Big Bear. Out into the darkness, said Little Bear. Yes, said Big Bear. But I'm scared of the dark, said Little Bear. No need to be, said Big Bear, and he took Little Bear by the paw and led him out of the cave into the night. And it was dark. Oh, I'm scared, said Little Bear, cuddling up to Big Bear. Big Bear lifted Little Bear and cuddled him and said, Look at the dark, Little Bear. And Little Bear looked. I've brought you the moon, Little Bear, said Big Bear. The bright yellow moon and all the twinkly stars. But Little Bear didn't say anything, for he'd gone to sleep, warm and safe in Big Bear's arms. Big Bear carried Little Bear back into the bear cave, fast asleep, and he settled down with Little Bear on one arm and the bear book on the other, cosy in the bear chair by the fire. And Big Bear read the bear book right to the end. And can you see what happened? They both fell asleep in the Big Bear chair. What a lovely wee story. Well, I hope whatever you're doing this week during Kinship Care Week, you have a lovely time, and I hope you enjoyed that wee book about Little Bear and Big Bear. So a big bear hug from this Big Bear, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight that we picked this story because we thought it showed the sort of hard work and dedication and love it takes to be a kinship carer, whether that's grandparents, aunties and uncles, siblings or friends of the family, and just everything that you do to look after children and young people that are in your care.
And that would be the very best place to end with that message, but we've just got a few. This one shows you most of the things that we've talked about today, and there are notes that go with each of these activities, and they'll go on to the place in the kinship.scot website when the PowerPoint goes up as well. And we'll just walk through the remainder of the slides, which really just showing our services, which you can look at. Oh, it's just coming through. You can look at your leisure by being able, I'm not asking you to roll these. We've got the 3 services, and you can see ours in the middle there, delivering workshops, short sessions and one-to-one support for carers. And this is the broader work. Yeah, if you go, Sarah, if you go to the next one, yeah. And it shows you the range of our work. You can find out more detail on the website. And then this is our service that we are responsible for. Sarah, would you like to say anything at all about it? Or we'll just let it speak for itself?
Yeah, you can find out more on our website, and if you've got any questions, don't be please get in touch.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention again where you can access the resources.
Okay.
Well, there is, of course, our conference on the 9th of September. And yeah, okay. There are a few tickets, I think, going to be made available. We're very hopeful of that. So in terms of accessing the resources, if you keep a watch out, or maybe Susan can confirm this, on the KCAS website for the link where the other webinars are posted. Now, the other thing to say to you is if you would like to access some of those links, if you can remember the washing line or the mindfulness grounding that our colleague did, you would need access to Digital Bricks, which is our digital platform for that. So the thing would be email us and we will enroll you to that if you actually want to go in through the platform and see. There's only a few activities that depends on Digital Bricks, but otherwise on the kinship.scot website. Have I missed anything, Susan, that I should be saying?
No, Anne, I think that's, we do hope to have this recording. If you're watching, it's probably from our website, and hopefully our new website, which is going to be launched at the end of July. And also we will have the resources that Anne has mentioned. You'll be able to either sign up to digital bricks or email the resources directly. It'll either be on a slide or there'll be a separate resource which will you can have a look at. This recording, we're absolutely delighted to have it, and it will be linked to our page on the website, which looks at self-care and your own health, because as Anne had mentioned, it's really important. Self-care is really important, and we're hoping to develop a suite of resources that look at caring for children and for kinship carers as well. And as part of that, Anne and Sarah are coming back to deliver training, I'm delighted to say, and we'll be sharing information about that as well. And some of the training, for example, understanding trauma, is already held on our website as well. And there's links to that, which are all held on our YouTube page as well. So I think that's everything from me. Just to say thank you so much, Anne and Sarah. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot from it, and I'm sure kinship families will as well. So thank you so much.
That's great. It's been a pleasure. It's really lovely for us to be able to do this, particularly in response to carers' requests. So I hope you'll have a lot of fun and benefit from it. And thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.